All right, Kirk. So yeah, I'm doing this. My first episode. My name is Gordon Serby. I am the CEO and co-founder of EduFocal Limited, and I'll be doing an entrepreneurial series, an entrepreneurial talk, talking to entrepreneurs. It just so happens that I'm an entrepreneur myself, so I have access to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs. We're joined today by Kirk Anthony Hamilton, and I will allow Kirk to introduce himself. So, Kirk.
Kirk Anthony Hamilton. I am the founder of the Infinity Partnership, and we're known for our front-facing kind of brands in the destination experience and tech beach retreat. But ultimately, I'm in the business of connecting opportunities with resources.
Okay. So, Kirk, you may or may not know this, but I've admired for a very long time how you bounce back from rejection. And I'm not sure if you know or don't know, but bouncing back from rejection is not something that everybody's good at. So our talk today is going to be centered around rejection as an entrepreneur and how you deal with it. So yeah, I mean, many times I've heard you on the phone, you're talking to people and you hear no, but the no doesn't deter you from pushing or doing what it is that you want to do. So I'm just wondering if you've always been that way or if it is something that is new for you, and just some background about how you got to where you are mentally in that regard.
Okay, so firstly, I definitely haven't always been this way, however you're describing it, and so it definitely has been a process. Anyone who is going through a certain level of growth, I won't necessarily say anyone who's successful, because for me, I'm still on a path, but with these stories, typically it's really hard to pinpoint that singular moment in time where something may have happened, but I am pretty sure I can capture a couple different instances that certainly would have had some impact. I always say to people when it comes to entrepreneurship that in order to be an entrepreneur, you have to be slightly crazy. And to your point, I guess I don't know how everyone approaches things, but one of the things that has been interesting for me as an entrepreneur is this idea that sometimes I get, flatlined out of nowhere. This big no comes. Let's say it's on a Tuesday, and you go to your bed almost feeling deflated. And I wake up the next morning with this thing in my head that just says, you know what? The picture wasn't big enough. I have to go after something more, right? So a lot of people outside of this space tend to deal with rejection in a way where, again, they're deflated. They continue on that path of just simply deciding that they're not going to do something. We often wake up almost more ambitious somehow, despite the fact that something didn't go well. In my kind of life cycle, I went to architecture school. I went to architecture school at an art and design institution, which meant that we spend a lot of time in these critiques, which I've kind of attributed more and more of my approach to having gone through this this process at this school. And so ultimately what a critique is you're standing up in front of your peers, professors, etc., and having everyone literally just go at you, right? And sometimes they have nice things to say, but they're in a position where they can just eat away at you and just tell you how poorly what you have done is, right? So I think through my college years, I got a bit used to presenting, taking feedback, accepting things as constructive criticism as opposed to someone going after me and such like that. And then the other place where I've gotten a lot of this from, I would argue, is my mom, and in conversations with my mom, but also, especially in my earlier years, having my mom help me through certain situations. So I'll never forget one instance where someone was kind of beating back at what I was trying to sell them. And I used to be a lot more defensive. I would jump to kind of, be in a point of aggression and telling people, well, this and that, and you're not looking at it this way and all this kind of stuff. And in a discussion with someone who my mom decided to come to this meeting with me, and this was like a follow-up, right? The person was making some comments in line with things I'd heard from them before and such like that, and so I was getting ready to jump to it, and my mom kind of stopped me and said, just listen. And she listened to the person speak, or we listened to them air all these things where in many moments I wanted to just respond, right? I wanted to be on the attack because some of these things were not the nicest in terms of how they sounded.
Yeah.
And when they were done speaking, she was able to completely turn around the conversation. And that experience was a big shift for me and a moment of learning and realization. I guess I just had never seen that process go through what she obviously was able to do. And it put me in a position where I give a lot more when I can towards the effort of listening and just hearing what people are saying.
So if, just listening to you, I'm hearing that sometimes you hear no, but there's value in a no. In the sense that you're listening to somebody and the conversation is steering towards them telling you no. But that doesn't give you ammo or authority to say, all right, cool, and kill the conversation. Sometimes you're hearing no, and it's an opportunity for you to listen to what they're saying and then make adjustments for other prospects, for other people that you may be talking to. Have you found that to be the case, or have you found any value in listening and then acting, not necessarily on what that particular person has said with them, but with other people?
I mean, so for certain, I mean, you would know, I always talk about balance, and I talk about like not having absolutes and stuff like that. So my thing is this, right? Many times people are telling you no, and in some cases they themselves don't even necessarily mean it, right? In some cases it's not fully substantiated. In some cases, we're all different. So they're seeing something differently to how you're seeing it. But if you jump to reacting without allowing people to kind of distill their thoughts, what ends up happening is you don't realize where their perspective leaves an opening for you, right? And also, we have to accept a simple reality. They usually say business is not emotional. I tell people more and more, business is very emotional. And so if you're dealing with somebody on Tuesday, their temperament on Tuesday may be very different from Thursday.
Yeah.
So I've even had those situations where somebody tells me point blank, no, we're not going to do this part of something. And then maybe you see them somewhere, or you decide to send them a message or something like that in a moment, and where they're in a more comfortable space, there's an opening where you can actually be like, I know you had said X, Y, and Z the other day, but I don't think you're seeing this side of the value for you, right? So I guess the term has become more increasingly popular in terms of emotional intelligence, reading people as they are and where they are in a given moment, and being able to leave situations alone, and definitely, being able to, there is a value in getting no from one place or organization, etc., and carrying that over into another conversation in terms of the takeaways, right?
Okay.
Because you can garner information from one person and leverage it in another situation.
So I'd say in the early days for me as an entrepreneur, hearing no was deflating for me, but not deflating for me as an entrepreneur, but for that particular situation. So it would affect me, not necessarily long term. I'm like, I was really expecting X or Y to happen. I was really looking forward to it, but it didn't happen, and it was really deflating for me. But I think when I met you and I realized how you dealt with issues, I'm like, that was really inspiring for me, because I'm not the only one hearing no. And it's an interesting thing is that regardless of where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, in your entrepreneurship journey, you will always hear no. I remember one particular instance where I was in Panama. I was at it was a World Economic Forum event, and I was there with I'd consider him a super successful entrepreneur. We didn't go there together, but I saw him there, a Jamaican entrepreneur. And this guy is well respected, but he was there trying to make deals. He was there trying to close deals, and I remember being with him and around him at one point, and he was so frustrated because he was trying to meet this guy, and he wasn't getting through, and it taught me that regardless of your stage in your entrepreneurial cycle, you will hear no. So you will have to get used to it. You're not going to get super successful one day and able to stop hearing no. I'm pretty sure Bill Gates hears no. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk, Steve Jobs when he was alive, they all hear no regardless of where they were or where they are in their journey. So I think if you are thinking about entrepreneurship, you definitely have to get used to hearing no, because it will happen and will happen often. In fact, I feel like entrepreneurs or at least has been my experience, I hear no more than I hear yes.
Absolutely.
And the no doesn't invalidate my idea, it doesn't invalidate what I'm doing. And even if I hear yes, hearing a yes is also not a validation of what I'm doing. For me, the validation of what I'm doing is whether customers are engaging in my product or my service, and if I'm really making an impact, right? And ultimately, if we're making money from what we're doing. So, yes, you'll hear no. You'll also hear yes, but neither is a validation of what you're doing. At least that's how I see it.
Well, to a lot of those comments, firstly, yes, people at all levels hear no all the time, right? And certainly, success, wealth, and these kind of credentials don't remove any level of human conditioning to whatever extent. I mean, certainly they can help you to operate at a different level. They can give you certain gateways. There are people who will accept you more. But then there are also situations where these very same people are frowned upon, right? And so, if it is then, let's say Bill Gates and his efforts, you'd be surprised at the challenges that philanthropy even faces when, the receiver is not necessarily fully trusting of why they're receiving, right? So, there are many programs and efforts that have been designed in the world, and I will not try to justify whether or not people are right or wrong, where, poverty-stricken individuals and communities and such like that have kind of refused help because they're uncertain of the the nature of the help and stuff like that. So certainly human nature is something that is a variable that is not controllable as far as I'm concerned, and so many people at the highest levels get rejected all the time. So the thing about no is that I think success is more about how you manage challenges than the idea that life is easy. Right? It's like, are you losing sleep because someone decided that they're not going to do something with you, or are you able to simply make it water off your back and move on to the next one? I think the most successful people then are those who are best able to not only move past it, but who are best able to manage rejection in the sense of, one of the things that I've learned, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm not necessarily a master at this as yet, is that, again, rejection or no doesn't mean the end, right? And there are people out there who are very good at taking the no and turning it back on itself and leading themselves to a yes, right? So you can be good at accepting that someone has told you no, and I think that's a great place to start. But you can also be good at strategically finding a way to the yes. Whether it be directly through that person or through channels that you understand have some level of influence over them. One person I learned something very strong from some years ago. The term was, it's all about the messenger, right? And so it's an important kind of phrase, just from the standpoint that you realize a simple thing that says, I am not always the person who has to deliver the message towards quote-unquote success, right? And people respond differently to different people. If someone has a better relationship with someone, then they're likely to see an outcome that someone else may not see, and such like that. And so, there are also ways to navigate around no's. Because sometimes, I mean, look, all of us are humans. We all have our walls. And sometimes they're up, right? And so depending on who you hear it from,
it's fine.
Depending on who you hear it from, depending on who you're hearing it from, there's a certain effect, right? And so, what I've learned, Gordon, is that someone could be reaching out to me constantly for something, and there are metrics that I'm measuring, probably subconsciously, that are just not adding up for me with this person. You could pick up the phone and call me and then say, Kirk, there's a guy named Jacob. He's been trying to get through to you. Just letting you know, I know him pretty well. I believe that you want to hear what he's saying, which then creates an opening where suddenly my mind starts to say, you know what? Maybe I'm not hearing him properly. And I think for me, I've been through that situation many times, not as me not hearing people properly, but people being in a position where people are so busy nowadays, you know, it's easy to say no because you want to quickly move on to opportunities that you feel are most, you know, productive for you. And what I've learned through those experiences is that on one end, you know, you can be a master negotiator and it's how you navigate conversations and how you handle them. But also you can strategically pursue having successful conversations by not necessarily trying to manage them yourself as well, right? And there's a careful balance that you have to strike between a lack of confidence in you and just understanding where somebody may be better placed than you, and then this being strategic in terms of granting you the outcome you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think in a very, I'm not sure if instinctual was the word, but I feel like if you stick to the entrepreneurial journey, you kind of figure it out over time, even if you're not able to articulate it, because some of the same things you've spoken about are things that I've applied. Even in observing you, I mean, I think it's so important for entrepreneurs to spend time with each other and talk to each other about the issues, and not just the successes, right? Because we all have challenges, sometimes varying challenges, but some other times very similar challenges. So, I mean, it's interesting hearing your side, and I think even though I know you well, sitting with you in this capacity and listening to you has been very, very informative and hopefully useful to other entrepreneurs. You know, and obviously there are a lot of other young entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs that would love to get access to us, but don't have the opportunity. And we also can't sit and talk to everybody. So I feel like this will hopefully be a great medium for people to watch and get some value. It's been great talking to you, Kirk, and hopefully when I get better at this video, thing, we'll have a follow-up interview in the future. And I mean, on a very separate note, I think that for me, this is really just a hobby for me. I mean, it's cathartic, as I said online on Twitter. I said that when I was going to start it, it's going to be like a stress relief kind of thing. And I feel like over time, you know, as we do more interviews, more videos, you should see some kind of progression in terms of getting better at it. And I feel like it's the same thing with hearing no. Over time, you get better at dealing with the no's and bouncing back from it. So thank you very much, Kirk. Really enjoyed the interview, and I hope people get value from it. Bless.
Wonderful.